Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. More Epstein files today. We're going to be getting into the connections to Jared Kushner, Halle Berry, Martha Stewart, and the Clintons. Now, it's important to understand that Epstein was the man behind the scenes. He was the man in the crowd. He was at TED Talks and virtually every lavish event that these elite went to in Palm Beach, as well as New York, and of course the islands. Now, St. Croix was the largest Virgin Island, and St. Thomas was very close to Epstein's Island, and it seemed to be a staging ground for him to basically accept guests and reach out to virtually every celebrity and president that went to the islands. Martha Stewart is one such example. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the show. Now, the frustration with the files is that the search bar seems to be sabotaged. Sometimes it'll search two separate words, and other times it won't. And anytime you type Trump's name in, it's like rigged, where it won't show you narrow results. It only shows you tens of thousands of results or 5,000 results. And so there's something wrong with the search bar. It's like they don't want you to make any connections between Epstein and Trump. We also understand with the files that there are 90% of the files are duplicates of one another. They really should have stripped that all away and given us probably 500,000 files instead of millions and millions, because most of them are duplicates. Now, I think this was intentional. That way they could quietly erase certain files and nobody would notice. And so they inundated the files with all kinds of nonsense, things that are completely not related to the files. It was insane going through some of this stuff, because you have to go through 6 or 7 duplicates to get to one file. So this is what we're dealing with the files, trying to parse through them, trying to see what the connections are. There are many, but it's going to take a very, very long time. Now, let's start with the Clintons. Now, the plot thickens. They've now agreed, post-Epstein file released, to come forward and testify. Remember, they weren't going to before? Well, now all of a sudden they say they are. And Trump says this is unfortunate. Trump weighs in on the upcoming Clinton House depositions. It's a shame. What is he talking about? Let's read this. Trump responded Tuesday to news of the depositions date for former President Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, as part of the investigation. I think it's a shame, to be honest, Trump says. I always liked him. Her? Yeah, she's a very capable woman who's better at debating than some of the other people. These are Trump's words, you guys. What happened to lock her up? She was smart woman, Trump said in the response to the Hill during a press gathering. I hate to see it in many ways, he continued, but then I look at me. They went after me. They wanted me to go to jail for the rest of my life, and it turns out I was innocent, he said, referring to the past investigations. I shouldn't feel this way, but I feel badly that they have to go through that. Wow. So now you're starting to see the Janice Trump kick in. People he once condemned, he's now got their back, probably because he's saying all this, probably because he doesn't want them to out him. Now, none of these people are going to out each other unless they're backed into a corner, but he's showing sympathy so that maybe they'll go easy on them. Now, this is irreprehensible, isn't it? Even the MAGA crowd and the Q crowd, they got Trump elected so he could lock these people up. And now he's covering this up. He's covering it all up. So now you see the truth come out about Trump and how he really feels about these people. There is no aisle on Epstein Isle. That's the truth. Now, at this point, we all know why Trump's name isn't in the files. Thousands of pages, including damaging pages against Trump, were removed under the camouflage of the redaction mistake that I believe they intentionally seeded into the files for the victims. And so they just went in and said, oh, we just removed those because of the victims. But now no one will ever know. There's too many files. You would literally need a computer algorithm to make sense of all this. And it's obvious now that files have been removed. These guys were best friends for at least several years, and some say maybe even close to a decade. Yet there isn't one single email in all of the files. Listen closely. There isn't one single email in all of the files between any of Trump's people and any of Epstein's people. Now, you could say, oh, I'm already seeing the disinformation come out. People are saying, oh, well, Trump, he doesn't know how to use a computer. He's that dumb. Like, this is what people are trying to say. I'm like, okay, so you mean to tell me of all the years that Epstein was a member of Mar-a-Lago, there was never a personal email between him and Trump, or a BlackBerry message, or someone in Trump's Mar-a-Lago office reaching out to Epstein, or vice versa? Zero. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they've all been scrubbed. They haven't left any remnants of any communication between Epstein and Trump, or Epstein's office and Trump's office. And if you think that that's just, oh, that's because they never had any contact, well, then this is probably the wrong channel for you. Because it's obvious to anybody that there should be some remnants of some kinds of communications between the two men, or their two secretaries, or the two offices. And there is simply none. Scrub confirmed. Kind of reminds me of the WikiLeaks and how we searched 9/11, and there was not one single person talking about 9/11 in the WikiLeaks. Now, understand that the Clintons, in the first wave of the files, I believe that was intentional, to put the Democrats back on their heels. And I'm talking about the Democrat, the people that vote Democrat, so that they would not put pressure to have the files and, so to have this relitigated and have them go after people in the files. Because if their guy was in the files, they're like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't say anything. The left isn't going full court after Trump because they don't want to embarrass the Clintons. This was all strategically politicized. And the real story here is that nobody is asking why both the right and the left found common ground with Epstein. That should be the story. Now, we're going to get into the curious case of a man named Leon Black. And let's go to the top of this page here. Leon Black was named in the Epstein files by this victim who they did an interview with. This was back in 2020. We're going to read this, and the reason why Leon Black is so important is because he is Apollo Management Group. The Apollo Management Group, who loaned Jared Kushner $250 million, the largest loan ever given by the group, times 3, and the Apollo Management Group that is helping Trump with his agenda. We'll get into all that in a little bit, but understand that Leon Black was best friends with two different Steens, Weinstein and Epstein. Let's read through this victim's testimony. Now, she is referred to as CW, and he is referred to, of course, as Leon Black. Let's pull up a picture of him so you get a visual of Leon Black. This is unbelievable. Here he is right here. Chairman of the board of the directors of Apollo Global Management. Ready for this? Let's start reading. Now, I'm going to kind of summarize some of this for you as I scroll down the page because it just gets way too wordy. But essentially, Leon Black approaches this model and he says he can help her with work. And this is when she says the alleged abuse began. Now, to be clear, this woman is not underage, but understand that she was essentially a prostitute. But she didn't start out that way. She was groomed into it by these rich and powerful men. Then she was passed around. This is what's going on at the top of our country, you guys. So Leon Black essentially gave her a loan, it says, and that was how he blackmailed her. He said, you got to pay this back. She says, I can't. But yet they were in control of her entire financial future, right? Because she kept depending on them to be successful, because they kept promising her that they were going to make her a model. So she thought she was going to be able to pay back the money. So she was stuck in a feedback loop. Can't pay back the money if you don't get a start in modeling, right? So they just basically used her up like a roll of toilet paper. This is what these people do because they're rich and powerful. And unfortunately, we live in a society where these people control all the money. And then there's shortage for the rest of us. And so people are desperate to make something of themselves. Unfortunately, they do what the Bible says we're not supposed to do. They seek after riches. And the Bible says when you do that, it will stab you all over the body with many pains. So we have to have sympathy for these people who've been tricked by this. The problem is the people at the top who control money. That's the problem. It's not the people who take the bait and keep going back for more. They're just trying to make sense of this world. This is the evil nature of the people at the top. Now let's go through some of this. So at a certain point, Leon Black inserted Epstein into the situation. He needed some help in breaking this model down because she kept saying, no, I don't want to. And the guy kept pressing, Leon kept pressing and pressing. And at this point, she talks about there were no flight papers required for her to travel. And she says that she thought that that was odd. They never asked for her documents. It was almost like she didn't exist. Wow. Then they threatened her that if she told, that they would find drugs on her. So this is more blackmail. Then at this point, this bizarre relationship with Leon Black continued. And this woman known as CW, she did keep coming back for more. Leon then took her to Weinstein. Weinstein wouldn't help her either. He says she was too hard to work with. But several of these men would keep showing up to her apartment. They would keep trying to get her drunk and trying to have sex with her. At some point, she says she tried to move on and she finished her bachelor's degree with straight A's. But then that's when the gang stalking started by people from Epstein's circle. She names Harry Dubin, Mort Zuckerman, and Weinstein that she says came to her apartment and tried to have sex with her. She then says she met Ghislaine Maxwell, who tried to get her to have sex with Prince Andrew. At this point, Leon Black, Apollo Global Management, sent her money, more money, which she has a record of, she says. You see how all this can be documented? More gang stalking happened. She said that people would come up to her when she would try to leave the country. And they would come up to her in foreign countries and they would tell her they knew her. Think about how creepy that would be. You know you're being followed and watched. She would get phone calls from random people and they would tell her that they knew what she was wearing that day and where she was walking. She was getting completely gang stalked. Another time, Leon came by again, and this time he drugged her and raped her. Now, at this point, she says he tried to play it off like they ate some bad food, And he said, "Oh, I don't feel so good." And she goes, "I don't feel good either." And then slowly the lights started going out. And she woke up and was in a different place. She then tried to leave the country, but the stalkers were everywhere. They were threatening her. She said that Leon Black kept bragging that he was best friends with Weinstein and Epstein. Now, I looked at the date of this deposition by this woman, and you have to remember this was 2020, right during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic. Actually, I think it was actually just before the lockdown, just before the Super Bowl of 2020. And then later, a month after this deposition, Harvey Weinstein was convicted. I looked up the history on all this. So why didn't Epstein come up related to Weinstein in the trial? They were inextricably linked, according to this woman's testimony. Was this investigated? Remember, the whole focus was on the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein. Nobody ever mentioned Epstein. It was like Weinstein was the fall guy and nobody wanted to look at anything else. This is the problem with our justice system. They don't go down the rabbit holes. They don't uncover the whole thing. They pick and choose what they're going to cover, right? Next, Leon tells her he has connections at the FBI. Wait, let me make sure we're connected. Oh my gosh. They always like to throw us offline about this time, right? So as soon as we start talking about the serious stuff. Okay, let's keep going. Well, it looks like you guys are all still here. Unbelievable. Now, I get upset about this stuff because there are plenty of reports. The FBI did not do their job. They covered all this up. So this goes on. Leon tells her he has connections at the FBI, and he forces her to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. He promises that he would forgive her loans if she signed it. So more circular argument, right? So it's all about leverage. They have all the power. So you sign the NDA, we'll forgive the loan. They knew she couldn't pay back that loan because they knew they weren't giving her work in modeling. And even if she found work in modeling on her own accord and started paying back the loan, they probably would have sabotaged her efforts just to keep her in bondage. This is the definition of trafficking, you guys. It's the very definition of it. Rich and powerful men gang stalking women to control them and passing them around to their friends. Now, at this point, she got handed back off to Epstein to clean up the mess. She says Leon Black paid Epstein $10 million, basically to make her go away. He sent it to one of Epstein's charities. Here's another example. We know that charities are corrupt. It's money laundering. Why do we live in an America where we continue to let this happen? I remember us having a discussion about this a long time ago, about charities and corruption and how the wealthy hide their money. But yet, our Justice Department does nothing. They'd rather focus on you and taking your property and sending you a letter from the IRS if you come up $500 short on your taxes. They'd rather do that and spend all their resources doing that than the billions of dollars that are being laundered through charities. This is why I tell you guys, I'd rather vote for the plumber than one of these rich people. When are we going to accept that and just do it? When are we going to write in Jesus Christ in the ballot? We can't get enough people to do it because now this should show people, you should be able to relate. This situation should be able to relate to everybody on both sides of the aisle. A woman trying to get into modeling. Now, of course, this is her side of the story. She said she resisted the advances for as long as she could, but they wanted this girl. So they just kept working on her and working on her, making advances. And she's like, I'm not that kind of girl. I want to do this legit. Well, there's no such thing as legit with these rich people. There's no such thing. They just keep applying the pressure with the end goal of using you up. Now, these are pretty specific accusations in this deposition. Times, locations, dates, bank, things that can be confirmed through banks. So, why are we talking about Leon Black, who's the named perp in this accusation? Well, again, he was the co-founder of this global Apollo Global Management, loaned Jared Kushner $184 million, triple the size of any loan they had ever given to anybody else. This was a huge scandal. And they also developed a business relationship that drew scrutiny due to the timing of the loans made to Kushner companies. Leon Black and Kushner were friends. They attended the 2016 US Open together. Leon Black is all over the Epstein files. And Apollo Management Group is all over Trump. They were a key financial sector supporter of the second Trump administration, with Rowan influencing policies on education. Rowan's the other guy, so it's Leon Black and Rowan, influencing policies on education, tariffs, and regulatory reform. Firms navigating a complex relationship, balancing support for Trump's economic policies against planned worker protests. Let's recap. A model is promised work by Leon Black, given a huge sum of money in the form of loans, which obligates her to become basically a whore for the rich and wealthy men who stalk and harass and grape her. Leon is best buds with Epstein and Weinstein, but for some reason the media wants us to believe none of these men knew each other. The model then signs an NDA to keep quiet and forgive the loan, get the loan forgiven, but she's still stalked and harassed. Meanwhile, Leon Black loans Kushner $250 million and helps Trump with his government agenda. Yet we're supposed to believe that Trump and Kushner knew nothing about this monster, Leon Black, or Epstein or Weinstein. And when you summarize it that way, the truth emerges. Let me check in with you guys, and we'll get into Halle Berry, because she shows up in the Epstein files as well. Now, like all these people, it's very hard to determine if they did anything wrong per se. But to me, a man who had so much access to too many rich and powerful people who all knew what he was into and all looked the other way. Talk about a conspiracy. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of celebrities, presidents, congressmen. So, conspiracies are real. They all knew what Epstein was doing and nobody came forward. So that's the conspiracy. So next time you think, oh, how would they cover something like that up? Just think of the Epstein files. They all knew and nobody did a thing for anybody. Now, let's get into Halle Berry. She was moonlighting with a possible meetup with Epstein. Let's go to these files here. And the way I came about Halle Berry was this victim who was raped by Epstein at age 12. And she says that he would call Halle Berry on the phone to impress her, and she'd put her on speakerphone. And the girl couldn't believe that he knew Halle Berry. There are even message reminders. Here in the message book, Halle Berry, interestingly, 322, Skull and Bones, is when she called Epstein. There's only one Halle Berry in the world, right? So, What did Epstein have that Halle Berry wanted is the question. Let's read this victim's testimony, who was raped by Epstein at 12 years old. This is sick on so many levels. This girl was essentially recruited out of Eastern Europe, is what the testimony says. They block out the country she came from. I don't know why they would block out the country, but she basically said she came from this country, probably Ukraine or Serbia, as a refugee. And then she was scooped up, pick of the litter, by the elite who used her. Let's read this. Okay, this is an interview. Let's see here. Her attorney was present. She was born in blank and immigrated to the United States in approximately blank, while blank was going through a civil war. So President Bill Clinton was giving refugees a chance to escape. That had to have been Serbia, right? Or Ukraine. She grew up. Blank has an older sister who she described as more outgoing than her. She said she did not speak English at the time. Her parents worked at McDonald's. Her family moved to blank because the schools were better. When blank was in middle school at age 13, she was discovered in reference to modeling. Went to LA with her mother. Her parents did not approve of modeling. Okay. She started modeling anyway. When she was 15 years old, she traveled to New York, lived in a model's apartment. Was the new face and star. Blank was the new face and star. Who is that? I don't know. Blank traveled between her school schedule. Her counselors had told her it was a good opportunity. When Blank was 16 years old, it was the first season that she was in New York full-time. Blank was with Blank, living on her own in model apartments. It sounds like another model she was with that probably was also groomed or was grooming her. Okay. It looks like she did a magazine cover. This other model that she was with. Blank had 10 to 12 castings a day. She would ring on doorbells of people's homes for shootings and castings. Blank was the youngest one. The ages of the models were 16 to 20 years old. Blank wanted to be like the other models. In one of the castings, Epstein's name came up when Blank was talking with other girls. A model Blank, whose last name Blank did not recall, talked about Epstein. Blank was older than Blank and spoke Blank's language. Gosh, see, this is the problem. Told her that Epstein had a Blank connection and that Epstein would be the most interesting person she would meet. Blank recalled that she had Epstein's apartment address in her phone. She remembered there being a big door and she went alone. Blank recalled that she knocked on so many doors for castings that she had no reason not to trust people. 99% of the people she met were nice. She recalled that Epstein's apartment was on the East 70th Street or so. There was a park nearby. Knocked on the door and it was opened by a maid, described as an older Spanish lady. Epstein was right behind the maid. She felt overwhelmed. She spoke with Epstein and told him her story. When she first met Epstein, he asked her how old she was. She told him she was 16. Described Epstein's homes as having marble floors, staircase, and an elevator. Epstein's study had ornate flowers from Africa, dark wood tables. She saw the picture of President Clinton, and Epstein told her that he and Clinton were best friends, and that she would sure to say hi to Bill for her or something. Epstein made Blank feel comfortable. They bonded over movies. Blank told him that growing up there were sanctions in Blank and she never saw Pretty Woman. Told him that the paramilitary would sneak in action movies like Apocalypse Now. Epstein told Blank that he had something on his shoulder that his masseuse could not get, so then he grooms her into basically massaging him. So this went on. He paid her for the massage like $200. But that wasn't an inappropriate massage at first. But then things got weird. And this is where she mentions that he would call Halle Berry on the speakerphone. Blank was sitting across from him. Blank was impressed. Epstein also called Naomi Campbell in front of her. She recalled going in an elevator, remembered seeing a hall of books. She was so impressed by this. So, here we have Halle Berry and Naomi Campbell listening to a 16-year-old girl on a speakerphone, knowing that this girl was in the clutches of a demon, and they didn't pick up the phone and tell somebody. Why? Because all they care about is their career. They don't want to be embroiled in a scandal. They don't want to do the right thing because they have too much power themselves. They knew that an underage girl was in Epstein's clutches, and they did nothing, allegedly. So the rest of this is disgusting. He gives the girl toys and starts grooming her into behavior that we don't even need to talk about. Now, what else do we have here? Look at these people. They have the gall to pretend like they're religious. Passover. Welcome to Passover. Unbelievable. Let's finish up with Martha Stewart. Let me check, see if you guys are here. Yes, you are. It appears as though we are. Let's get into Martha Stewart. Now, she was wanting to hang out so badly on Epstein Island. She gave Epstein her phone number, asked for a call back. Let's read through some of these emails. This is Leslie Groff. This was Epstein's assistant, sends Martha Stewart an email. Hello, Suju. Hope you're well. It has been a while. Why did she call her Suju? What does that mean? Jeffrey is hosting Woody Allen and Soon Yi for dinner this coming Tuesday at his home. He is wondering if Martha, this must be her assistant. This must be Martha Stewart's assistant is Suju. He is wondering if Martha could come join the fun. So they're inviting her to hang out with Woody Allen. Now, obviously, you would not ask a celebrity to hang out with Woody Allen unless either they were friends with Woody Allen or they've hung out with him before. Please let me know if Martha is around and available to come. Now, what's unclear about these files? Let's see. Let's go back to this one. Control F. Martha. She's not in this one. Let's go back here. I don't know why I pulled that one up. What's clear about this, what's not clear, is if she ever showed up. But these communications are troubling. Here's another one. From Epstein's assistant to Epstein. She says, Martha Stewart is asking if you might have room on your plane to and from the TED conference. Please advise. So she's asking for a flight to the TED conference with Epstein on the Lolita Express. From Jeff, here's another one. From Jeffrey to blank. Martha will be on holiday on St. Croix. This is one of the Virgin Islands. From December 23rd to January 2nd. Let's back up. Let's go to the beginning of this thread here. Okay. This is where Leslie is giving. This is where Martha Stewart gave her cell phone number to Epstein's assistant. Martha Stewart's assistant wanted to pass along Martha's cell to you. She also requested your cell. Martha will be on St. Croix starting December 23rd. So, did she ever go to the island? She was at St. Croix, right there. We don't know. Those files have probably been scrubbed. Here's some more Epstein files with relation to Trump that I found during my searches. Let's go up here. Okay, Thomas Landon wrote, I'm kind of shocked that our reporters did not contact you regarding the Trump woman story. Seems to me he got off rather lightly. So they know something that the reporters weren't reporting on. He asks Epstein, "How are you doing?" And then Epstein says, "Yeah, me too," confirming the "I am shocked that our reporters did not contact you regarding the Trump woman story. It seems to me Trump got off rather lightly." Epstein says, "Me too." And then Thomas says, "Is the other stuff ever going to come out?" What other stuff? What other stuff? So, Trump's going around the media acting like he's done nothing wrong and the files exonerate him. They absolutely do not. Now, some of these files relate to one of Epstein's pilots. He had several. One of his pilots was named Vysotsky, Visoski. He's still around, but his other pilot, she's missing. Nadia Marcinko is a Slavic-born pilot, flight instructor, and CEO of aviation webstop Avaloop. She is known as the former pilot of Jeffrey Epstein. She has been reported missing since 2024. So they just kill these people off. Look, if there's nothing to hide, why are these people getting killed off? Epstein was already dead in 2024. Why? Who killed her? If the guy who we're told was behind all of it, and he never, ever trafficked anybody else, it was just him and Ghislaine Maxwell, then why did they kill the pilot? Because she knows something. Now, I want to give you guys some encouragement, because many of you are wondering, what the heck are we doing here? What is the strategy in looking at these files and doing all this work? Well, if we keep up the pressure and we keep naming names, somebody is going to crack under the heat, aren't they? And they're going to spill the beans. They're going to get backed into a corner. They're going to, the rest of the billionaires are going to try to make that person the fall guy. And then the person backed in the corner is going to say like, no. I have pictures of blah, blah, blah. And I'm hoping that this whole thing will unravel at some point. But if there's no pressure on them and we just move along like Trump wants us to do, then there's no need for anyone to spill the beans. You see the strategy here? This is why we need to stay on this. Every single one of you who have free time in the truth community should be pulling up the DOJ website and doing word searches on this stuff. Spend 20 minutes doing it, because if you find something, you can send that to me or anybody else, and we can start to apply the pressure. They're hoping we'll all just go away. Now, the files that we do have left a lot of people hanging out to dry. And believe it or not, in the United Kingdom, several people have been deposed from their jobs. They've been fired for appearing in the Epstein files. So we can effect change. The problem is we're not doing that in America. We're so divided by the right-left paradigm that people have already picked their side. They either defend Trump and believe him, or they defend Clinton and believe them. Nobody's getting held accountable. Now, it's only a matter of time before people speak up in their defense and share what they saw or what they knew publicly. I really think this is going to happen. And my thought process on all this is that I won't be happy until the victims are satisfied with who's been named. And right now, they are not satisfied with who's been named. And so our job is not done yet. So that's why we're staying on this, you guys. This isn't a distraction. This is the foundation of our country. People are saying, oh, well, this is just going to bring in AI governance. No. Who in their right mind would vote for AI governance, given what we just went through with them using AI to cover up their crimes? Who in their right mind would default to AI governance? I can't imagine anybody would. Because they already showed their hand with AI and how destructive it can be and how it can trick anybody and how it could make up votes almost worse than what they do now in fixing these elections. So don't take the bait. No, the files are there. We need to stay on it. The fact that they sabotage the files with all the repeats, so we have to wade through tens of thousands of files. The fact that they sabotage Trump's name, so you put in Trump's name for the search and it won't even give you results. The fact that they had to do all that tells you there's something in the files. They're just hoping we give up. You guys, I've been on the back end of this. There are Redditors, heroes, who are out there trying to make sense of these files in terms of putting them into a searchable format. They're all working on that now. They've tried to download the files before they could be like literally erased and redacted. So many of them got the initial files before the other files were removed. They're having their posts removed on Reddit by moderators, literally erasing their work. They've gone on backup channels to try to get the information out. They are being stopped at every turn. If there was nothing to see in the files, why would that be happening? Why would social media be erasing what they already released? They wouldn't, right? They wouldn't care. They'd be like, okay, it's all fake anyway. So don't believe the hype. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that there's nothing to see here. Move along. Okay, I'm back in the chat, you guys. Wow, what a trip. Now, in the end, absolutely, we all know how this is going to end eventually. Vengeance is God's, but it doesn't mean we can't do the right thing and at least stand up for truth, right? How else will the saints be worn out in the last days? The Bible says they will wear out the saints. How else does that happen unless the saints are standing up for truth? Is the way I look at it. So you don't just say, oh, well, nothing we could do anyway. Let's just move on. And then those very same people go back to the voting box and vote for more evil and more right-left paradigm stuff. Because they haven't learned their lesson, because they're not in the fight. They don't care. They think man is going to solve our problems. So, all right, you guys. Yeah, we haven't had one. Well, we've had a couple people fired from their jobs, or they stepped down, who were embarrassed from the Epstein files, but nothing like what's going on in the UK. They've fired dozens of people. You guys, there are pictures of Prince Andrew with a baby on the ground, and the baby's like knocked out, incapacitated. Why isn't he in jail? Why isn't he in jail? So, all right, you guys. Well, guess I'm going to pop off of here. I appreciate you guys all showing up. We will keep on with the Epstein files. Now, the way you can help, if you do take some time to go into the Epstein files and you find something, basically put it in the comments section. Put the file number. Well, we're not going to be able to find it by the file number. Put a link, and I usually don't approve links because people come on here and put all kinds of crazy links, but I can see the links on the back end, and I'll go in, and that'll be a nice place for me to go and see the links. So just put a link to the file that you found, okay? And this is called crowd investigation. You know, I can't do it all on my own. I'm doing the best I can, and then I present to you what I find. But, you know, the crowd is the power. And we do have the power. We just don't realize it. And if you have everybody looking, or as many people that can, like I understand a lot of you work, you have other things going on, so I don't expect you to be part. But if you have nothing to do, this would be a great way to show some activism, to try to help out, to find what's going on in these files. And just, you know, put the link, and I'll find the link, and I'll look it up, and I can put a show together from that as well. So, all right. Okay. Yes, we figured out the artist name. I put a link to that. Wait, was it the artist we found or the girlfriend of that guy? I think we found the lingerie model. We didn't find the artist. We found the lingerie model from the other show the other day. So, what about Hunter? Hunter Biden. You want me to look up Hunter Biden? Is that what you want me to do? I can do that. Yeah, he seemed to be into some of this stuff as well, with his crack pipe. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let me copy this. Thank you, monster. Search for a lizard. Okay. Put this in my notes. Someone asked me to look up propofol too. I don't think they're going to be that sloppy. I think what they would do is use a code name for propofol. I don't know what that code name is. Let's look up Hunter Biden. Now understand that the files are flooded with news headlines. For some reason, there's all these news headlines. And so you get lost in it. You got like 90% of it's like news stories going to emails and things. So if I were to type in Hunter Biden, of course, his story would come up and it would be flooded with. I'd have to literally parse through thousands of pages. The other thing is, let's see here. Yeah, some of you won't go to the DOJ website. Look, I'm here. I've been doing this every day for 13 years. In the beginning, I thought, oh, one day I'm going to be dead. You know, I thought, okay, one day they're going to break down my door, inject me between my toes, and then say I died of a drug overdose or something, right? I'm here on the front lines, you guys. They don't care about the tens of thousands or millions of people going to the DOJ website. They're not going to put you on a list and come after you. Because if they don't care to come after me, then they're not going to come after you, okay? So you can be afraid about that, but I think that your fears are unfounded. Because they would have came and got me a long time ago, and many other truth channels that are standing up to do the right thing, okay? Think about the children and what happened to them. And ask yourself, if that happened to you and no one stood up in plain sight and did anything about it out of fear of what might happen to them, how that would make you feel. You'd feel like a coward, wouldn't you? Gosh, I couldn't even do the right thing to protect a child. That's like watching an animal being tortured and doing nothing. So think about that when you think about being afraid of doing the right thing because you think you're going to end up on some list. The fact that you're on this channel right now, if there was a list to be on, you being in the chat right now would put you on a list, right? So don't be afraid of that stuff. Believe me, the first couple of years I was doing this, I was afraid of that stuff. And then I realized year after year went by and nothing ever happened to me. I'm like, okay, if I don't need to be afraid, then none of you need to be afraid because you don't have a voice or a YouTube channel to spread the information, right? At most, they're going to get a couple shares out of you. They don't have the resources to go after millions of awake people, okay? Unless we let them, unless we cower in fear, then they'll just roll right over us, okay? We're not doing anything illegal. It's not like we're doing anything illegal. So, all right. So I got my list of things to look up for today. Hunter Biden, propofol, search for lizard or Highlander. You guys gave me a document. That's what I have so far. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to pop off here. I love each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take care.